Auftauchen.
Hello and welcome to the Asinego channel. I am the Asinego. Fury, a 2014 epic war film starring Brad Pitt. I want to talk about it. There will be spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. Specifically, I want to express why it is I loathe this film. Not love, loathe. I should state that I do not consider it a bad film. Indeed, I am seldom one to label a film as bad. My general attitude on films is if I didn't like it, it just wasn't meant for me. That does not mean it was a bad film or song or TV show or play or whatever. Hell, loads of films that are universally considered bad are nevertheless a great deal of fun to watch. Films like Plan 9 from Outer Space and The Room come quickly to mind. If a film doesn't work for me, it's probably how it was written, the way it was shot, things like that. Something fails to connect with me. I feel that most films, most of the time, have things that are good about them. I mean, a bunch of folks came together, there was real effort behind it, and there's some value in that. It just didn't work for me. Now, full disclosure, I am a card-carrying member of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. This is the PIN. This is a labor union, and you'll often see their logo in the credits of most films that you see. A few examples: The Wizard of Oz, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Top Gun Maverick. Pretty neat. I tell you this only because if I'm going to be opining in public about a movie or a play or a TV show, having this affiliation might matter to some people as they may think it causes bias. I do not, but I'm telling you. So, these are some of the people that come together to help make a film. Few bad films overall, rather films that just didn't work for me. This is Fury. Many folks recommended this film to me, thinking it was right up my alley. I thought the same when it came out, which is why I went and saw it. A big selling point was that it was using a real German Tiger tank. Now that may not seem noteworthy, but it is. Every time Tiger tanks and other infamous German tanks of World War II have appeared in films, they've been fakes. In older films, they're often just American tanks, but painted to look like German tanks. More recent films mock up a tank to make it look like an authentic German tank. In Saving Private Ryan, they used a Soviet-era T-34 tank and dressed it up to look like a Tiger tank. The dead giveaway is the location of the turret. For German tanks, they're centered. For the Soviet T-34 tank, it's off-centered and a little bit towards the front. There are very few operational German Tiger tanks left in the world. And most people won't care if a movie dresses up some other tank. They're likely not even gonna know. For a geek, featuring a real Tiger tank is a cool little novelty. And it suggests that the filmmakers are going for some real authenticity. The filmmakers seem to care. And in this film, Fury, they do seem to make a real effort to get little details correct. Quite different from another historical film that I also loathe. This film is bad in part because it purports to be historical. And it isn't. Brandon on his channel has a whole series of videos on this very topic. I need not retread his great work. Instead, I'm going to link to it in the end screen. And I'm going to encourage you, if you're interested, in watching it. Nevertheless, there are good things about The Patriot. For example, Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger turn in fine performances. Curiously, both films, The Patriot and Fury, share the English actor Jason Isaacs. So let's get to it. Fury is a 2014 epic war film set in the final months of World War II. It stars Brad Pitt and other familiar faces. Pitt and his merry bunch are the crew of a Sherman tank called Fury. This film is about that tank and its crew. While I do not believe it is likely, I kind of assume the filmmakers must hate soldiers. German, American, doesn't matter. Nearly all of them in this film are irredeemable and awful people. There is a scene in an apartment with some German women that makes 3 of the American tank crew so terrible in my eye that from that point on, I don't care if they live or die. Hell, I prefer they die. They are not redeemed in this film. A feeble effort is made later with John Bernthal's character, but he's already so lost to me at that point, I don't really care about his apparent redemption. Later, there is a scene where Brad Pitt's character forces his newest crew member to murder a POW. This POW committed the capital offense of wearing an American greatcoat. I shouldn't have to say this, but murdering a POW is a crime. And it's immoral. Worse, this scene occurs in front of nearly an entire company of American soldiers, which is just grotesque. Were German POWs murdered by American soldiers during World War II? Of course. Did such murders occur in full view of several dozens of others and not at least result in a court-martial? On the whole, I seriously doubt it. I cannot accept that nearly a whole company of men would watch, all laughing and enjoying the scene, without at least one, but likely tens of them, either intervening or reporting it up the chain of command. But for a few notable exceptions, if you read up on American murders of German POWs, in most instances, and there are not a lot, the murderer was arrested immediately. In this scene, we've seriously raised the likelihood of a court-martial because there are so many witnesses to it. Are there immoral psychopaths in the Army? Yeah, sure. In a long and grueling war, I'm sure more are made. But nearly a whole company of them? I think you really have to hate soldiers to film so many of them gleefully enjoying a murder. I think I understand that the filmmakers were trying to highlight the horrors of war and psychological toll with scenes like these. But the way that they chose to convey this just didn't work for me. I can suspend disbelief, but only for so far. Especially with a film, though fiction, purporting to be historically accurate. I can accept the apartment scene, even though it makes me loathe the American tank crew. Boy, I hope they don't make it. This murder scene is a gross indictment of American soldiers generally. That I cannot abide. It is important to remember that making a film is an enormous project. These scenes are choices that constitute hours and hours of work and lots of thought. The filmmaker wants the viewer to see the horrors of war. But the effect is viewers thinking that American soldiers gleefully murdered POWs. It's such a common occurrence that none bat an eye or even recognize that this is a problem. In Saving Private Ryan, there was a similar scene where there was talk of killing a POW. There were only 6 guys in that scene, and one of them stood up to make the case that this was wrong. Throughout the entire scene, it is clear to the viewer that killing the POW might be the right thing to do. After all, they're deep behind enemy lines. yet it still feels wrong. Because it's a great film, playing with the boundaries of right and wrong, the moral choice made by the captain eventually costs him his own life. In Fury, there's several dozen guys standing around and not one objects. There's not much more to it than that. There's no depth. It's awful, and I hate it. The fact that I do not much care for the characters in this film is not enough to make me loathe the whole film. There's more. Another thing I object to is the incompetence of the German soldiers. They are worse than Imperial stormtroopers. Before the murder scene, there is a battle sequence. 4 tanks roll over a flat, open field abreast of each other. Then, a shock. A heavy artillery piece fires on them. It misses, of course. This is fine. It missing. This is so late in the war, and Germany is running out of troops. Maybe it's a ground crew from a local airfield that is pressed into service to man this field gun. Perhaps a group of boys or old men doing the same. Regardless, there are plenty of reasons and opportunity for the filmmakers to show why it is a concealed gun firing at a relatively close range over a flat, unobstructed field of view with the element of surprise on their side would miss their first shot. The one shot they really should have scored, given they had all the time to line it up and get it right before firing. It's not boys. It's not old men. We are shown veteran crack troops. Grizzled, middle-aged men. Men who've likely served all 6 years of this war. And they're not just firing any gun. They're firing the PaK-40 anti-tank gun. These are guns made for destroying tanks. Yet somehow this veteran crew firing the right gun for the right job misses with their first shot. The easiest shot they will take. This blows my mind. Why did the filmmakers choose to feature veteran troops rather than teenagers or boys? Why did they choose the right gun for the right job rather than a gun that wasn't made explicitly for destroying tanks? Worse, unknown to us, the audience, and unknown to the American tanks, there is another anti-tank gun crew. It reveals itself only after the first gun crew is destroyed. Why? The Germans had the Americans lined up abreast next to each other on a flat, open field. No obstructions. A clear field of fire. They had a gun on the left and they had a gun on the right. Instead of going turns, and thus allowing all 4 American tanks to concentrate all their fire on one gun, they could have both opened up on the American tanks, forcing them to have to decide who to fire at first. You know, trying to complicate it at least a little bit. Not to wait. Not to let all 4 American tanks fire at the one gun, and then allow all 4 American tanks to turn and fire on the next gun. This is also tactically stupid on the part of the Germans. The filmmakers could have used boys or old men or whatever to crew these guns. Excitable teens, no experience using these guns. But no, that is not the choice the filmmakers made. They used veteran crack troops who damn well know how to put rounds on a target, especially on the first shot. The one shot, they can spend the time lining up just perfect. Ultimately, they fire 4 shots and miss every time. It is stunning. It is choices like this, using veterans instead of rookies, that help make me loathe this film. But it is not just these scenes that make me loathe this film. Oh no, there's more. The money shot of this film is when they bring out the authentic German Tiger tank. The filmmakers chose to open their film with a text blurb about how awesome German tanks were and how outmatched the American tanks were. And so here we are, The amazing Tiger tank versus those scrappy Sherman tanks. How does this scene start? A kill shot. Exactly what I would expect, unlike that earlier scene. One shot. Perfect. Blows the turret right off. Then we see the Tiger that fired that shot. It's in a concealed position a good distance away. It has just proven to us, the viewers, that it can knock out an American tank at that distance, no problem. The filmmakers chose to show us that. The Americans are outgunned and outclassed. First, the Americans try to scurry away, but they're trapped. So they choose to charge head on at that Tiger.
All right, all tanks, move forward.
Exciting. Then, the weirdest thing. The German tank starts to dry. Worse, it's driving forward rather than in reverse. I could buy reverse, but forward? We already saw that the Tiger can take out the American tanks at that range. So why would the German tank expose itself? Other than to withdraw, why leave that concealed position? Now, moving forward, movement is going to make hitting a target that much harder. Sitting in one spot, they should have no trouble taking out each American tank in turn. Moving? Hitting bumps? What the hell are they doing? All the shots from the Americans are bouncing off the German armor. Closing the distance only helps the Americans. Firing at point-blank range gives the Americans a chance to penetrate that German armor. Firing at distances measured in kilometers means the Americans have no chance. The German has already shown it is all well within his range. Why is he helping the Americans close that distance? I know why. It's that airfield ground crew pressed into service. They have no idea what they're doing. That explains it. No. The filmmakers have chosen to crew this German tank with an actual, properly uniformed, and thus trained veteran tank crew. And the German tank commander isn't like Brad Pitt, a sergeant, an enlisted man. No, the German tank commander is a commissioned officer. Worse, he's well decorated. He has the Iron Cross, second and first class. He has patches on his arm indicating all the tanks he's destroyed in his career. He is no rookie. Why did he command his tank so incompetently? We saw in the opening shot that that German tank could take out the Americans from that distance. If this were a bunch of boys or old men thrown into that tank in the last months of the war, then I can suspend my disbelief and accept it. Though I don't think a PhD in physics or actual experience in a tank is required to understand that point-blank range increases the chances of penetration. Put yourself in that German Tiger tank. You're watching the American rounds bouncing off your armor the whole time that you were traversing that field. Meanwhile, on that rare occasion when you actually hit a target, it blows up the whole time that you are traversing that field. So, stop. Why are you driving forward? The entire time this scene plays, I am screaming, stop, at the screen. Rookie tank crew? Okay, fine. But that's not the choice the filmmakers went with. And so, it's terrible. And yes, I am sad to say, there is more. The ending. The big climax of the film. I hate it. As noted earlier, I loathe the American tank crew. The men. They suck. So the crew getting killed in the final battle is the one part I like. It just takes too long. To set the scene, we must first go much earlier back into the film. Early on, one of the American tanks is destroyed by a Panzer Faust. It is used by children. Children can use this weapon. One shot destroys tanks.
All tanks, war daddy. Looks like I'm it.
This was established in this film by its filmmakers. We all saw it. In real life, a Panzerfaust would have more epically destroyed that American tank. The Panzerfaust was a cheap and easy-to-use weapon made for the single purpose of destroying tanks, and it did its job well. This is what happens when a tank is hit by one. The movie, rather than blowing the tank up, chooses instead to have the tank erupt into fire, and that's fine. The key points are that kids can use it and it immediately destroys tanks. That's why it exists. So back to the finale. The American tank has been disabled. An entire battalion of crack German troops is approaching. We see them. They're veterans. They're decorated, not rookies. Once close, the Americans open up on them. This begins a very long, an absurdly long, battle between a disabled American tank and crack, decorated veteran troops. And what do these veterans do? They shoot at the tank with rifles. I don't think you need to be a World War II nerd or whatever to realize or understand that shooting a rifle at a tank is not going to do you much good. Standing in front of a tank shooting a rifle at it is a death wish. The Germans try this tactic for far too long. But then it comes. What I would think might be the worst moment of this film. It's not. A German officer appears, and he breaks out crates of Panzerfausts. They have had them this whole time. Crates of them. They have had crates of weapons that were explicitly designed for the singular purpose of destroying tanks. Yet they have thrown body after body for 20 minutes at a disabled tank, never once thinking, hey, you know what we should use? This whole shooting a rifle at a tank thing, it just isn't working out. I would think this is the worst moment of the film, but it's not. What we are shown next is an adult veteran soldier using the Panzerfaust. He fires it, and it hits the American tank. That's the end of the movie. Or it would be if the filmmakers had stuck to what they'd already shown us in their own film. Does the American tank burst into flames when the Panzerfaust hits it? No. It goes through like a tiny little bullet and hits just one guy inside the tank. I endured everything up to this moment. But this is it. This is when I finally said, I hate this movie. We saw in this film what a Panzerfaust does. The filmmakers showed us that. They showed us that kids could do that to a tank using this weapon. And here, now, at the end, they show us this. They changed the whole game in the final act. The filmmakers did not need to do this. There was no need to introduce crates of Panzerfausts. They could have just left that out. These are choices by the filmmaker. Horrible choices, in my view. It just doesn't work for me. Is it a bad movie? I personally would not recommend it, but no, it is not a bad movie. Most people seem to love it. I've watched a number of YouTube movie reactors do this film, curious to see if anyone else has the same kind of reaction to it that I do. Am I the only one who hates this movie? It seems that the answer is yes. And I do admit some surprise at that. I do not think you need to know anything about the World War, or tanks, or even Panzerfausts. I think you need to know only those things that the filmmakers have chosen to show you in this movie. The Americans are terrible people. At least one is a murdering psychopath. The German soldiers are veterans. You need only close your eyes and imagine a veteran soldier. The image that we come up with is not a 16-year-old boy or a 70-year-old man, and certainly isn't someone wearing a bunch of medals. No veteran German anti-tank gun crew can hit anything. We see what happens when a big fancy German tank manages to hit an American tank. We see what happens when the American tank hits the big fancy German tank. We see the big fancy German tank we were warned about in the opening text drive across a field it otherwise has no business, driving across. There's a weapon that even kids can use that turns a tank immediately into a flaming wreck. Later, that same weapon, when used by adults, suddenly devolves into just a fancy bullet that otherwise does no apparent damage to the tank itself. Despite the film showing us all this, it seems most people like this movie. You're not wrong. It isn't a bad movie. It just isn't for me. And to each their own. That is my little rant about the 2014 epic war film, Fury. I hope you found that interesting or amusing or just a fine waste of time. All right. Well, that's about it. So I reckon I'm going to get. So until next time, cheers.